hadn't seen you do that before. You were very loud about it. It felt so good as a woman to be claimed like that. You were so proud of me and you didn't care who saw. There was definitely some backlash.
If he wanted to put you in the spotlight, he would.
Emotional safety for me looks like I don't have to question whether he's chosen me. I'm not guessing whether he's texting other women. I'm not jealous of his ex. That's something that you did to make me feel safe in the relationship. If you are dating a 25-year-old or older man and he does not have the character, but you see that he could be a kind and generous and gracious man in the future, girl, stop lying to yourself. Date younger women because they have less baggage.
You might get me in trouble on this episode.
Oh, I love this one. So now I wanted to move into some dating advice that I have seen online, and I just wanted us to kind of go back and forth on our thoughts on it, because some of this is popular dating advice, and reels are amazing, but sometimes it just gives you this really brief snapshot, and then your brain has this thing where it likes to jump to conclusions and comes to this definitive answer when in fact there is so much more to unpack. So I thought we could touch on some of the dating advice that I have seen and just get your perspective, and we can talk about it. When I said this to you, you didn't even know what it was. So I'm going to actually share what this quote is if he wanted to, he would. If you're a woman, you know about this. If you're on social media at all, you know about this advice. And it's a popular saying, especially in the context of dating and relationships, that suggests a person's actions or lack thereof are a direct reflection of their desire. So if someone truly wants to pursue something, whether it's a relationship, a friendship, or a specific goal, they will make the effort to do so. Conversely, if they are not making an effort, it's often interpreted as a lack of genuine interest and desire. So I've seen a huge influx in content on if he wanted to, he would. Oftentimes it's a really beautiful girl with her boyfriend or husband, and they're like on a boat, and it's like if he wanted to, he would. And would love your thoughts on this.
There's so many variables to this question, but if I'm going to circle back to the beginning of this podcast, where the commitment thing, I think that's involved as well. Like if he wanted to, he would. It's if he's in the relationship because he's filling a void and he's not really ready for that commitment, he doesn't want marriage, then he's not all in the relationship and he's not going to do the things that you may expect of him. So you want to, let's say, for example, some men that aren't fully in their relationship, they don't want to share them on social media very much. They want to sort of keep it hidden because they don't want to be seen with another woman. They want to keep their doors open. Yeah, it's just if he wanted to put you in the spotlight, he would, because he would be committed to you and he wants to spend his life with you. So, that's an example. It's just not, it's tying back to what we were talking about before. He's not committed to the relationship. However, there are certain things where he may be committed to the relationship, but he just can't do. It doesn't make sense logically for him. For example, if he's on $80,000 a year, he's not going to buy you the $80,000 car or $100,000 car. He might love you to death and will be willing to do everything for you, but not going to put his family in the wrong place financially by buying you the car or by buying you the handbag when he is not in that position. So there's so many variables to it. But yeah, at the end of the day, he would if you were the girl.
I remember when we started dating, you posted me on Instagram, and I was so surprised because obviously you had a big following and I hadn't seen you do that before, and you were very loud about it, like, this, I found my soulmate. And I was like, it felt so good as a woman to be claimed like that. And that you were so proud of me and you didn't care who saw. There was definitely some backlash from it on my end. That was something that we navigated, but I loved your responsiveness. And there's two ways to look at it. There's what a man can do for you emotionally and what he can do for you materially. And I think the material thing there, first of all, I know the people are always looking for reasons to be offended online. So it's almost like no matter what you say, someone's going to be offended, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with wanting material things. Like if you have a certain standard for the lifestyle that you want and you want your men to meet that level, fair enough. For me personally, I think that the material stuff is not nearly as important as the emotional stuff. Can this man give me emotional safety? Emotional safety for me looks like I don't have to question whether he's chosen me. I'm not guessing whether he's texting other women. I'm not jealous of his ex. To me, that's something that you did to make me feel safe in the relationship. So if he wanted to, he would, right? You did things to make me feel safe in our relationship. Again, even that is layered because there's someone like you who was emotionally mature and had the capacity to do that. So you could, because you had chosen me, you wanted to, and you did it. If a man doesn't have a baseline level of emotional intelligence, maturity, masculinity, he may feel obsessed with you. And this is where I see women trapped in relationships that are so not good. It's like, but he loves me. He tells me he loves me. And the man can feel all the things that he wants, but it's how he executes. If he doesn't have the emotional maturity to create emotional safety for you and you feel like he's got a wandering eye, you don't know what he's doing half the time, then that's also, if he wanted to, he would, but also he just might not have the capacity to. And again, that comes down to standards. Do you have a baseline standard of, you know what, it's imperative that I feel safe. My life is complex enough. The last thing I need to be is wondering what my husband or my boyfriend is doing. There's the element.
Ties back to the boundaries.
Yeah.
Healthy boundaries and sticking to them.
Sticking to them and also knowing the man that you're working with, right? So it's like, if you don't have the emotional capacity because you don't have the emotional maturity, it's not even about whether if he wanted to, he would. We know he can't. He actually doesn't have the capacity to do it. He's emotionally stunted. He's not willing to do the work. Then you have to have the self-respect, like we were talking about, to walk away from that situation. If you are more of like the material girly where you want to have those material things, I feel like that's a grayer area and it's definitely a more controversial topic. Know the type of men that you're dating. Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely no judgment there. If you want to have, your baseline is he must be very wealthy, no problems. But you have to understand that everything has payoffs to everything. You can't expect to have a very successful man that is also going to be emotionally available to you every second of the day or is going to spend tons of time with you. You have to understand, what you're working with, or has a bunch of time for your children. You have to be willing to, there's the pros and cons of every single dynamic. I've definitely been there myself where the money was there, but I felt alone. And I don't want to be alone sitting to $1 million because that $1 million doesn't give me anything. It's a feeling that we're chasing at the end of the day. So I would rather be with someone where, obviously, I don't want to be with someone that doesn't like work or anything, but it's like they don't need to be a multimillionaire. Yeah, it's just knowing what you want.
Yeah, but are they ambitious? Are they still working on their goals? Are they still, making the effort to build something, or are they not a doll bludger?
I love that because oftentimes we say is don't fall in love with potential. And again, this is advice that I agree and don't agree with. So where I agree with it is, if you see potential in your man and you see him as successful financially and you see his work ethic, absolutely fall in love with potential. Where I would never recommend a woman to fall in love with potential in is character. If you are dating a 25-year-old or older man and he does not have the character, but you see that he could be a kind and generous and gracious man in the future, girl, stop lying to yourself. Do not fall in love with that potential. He's not going to change for you. Men do not change for women. Men change for themselves because they have, and it's not just men, anyone. People do not change for somebody else. They change because they have an internal reason to. If they begin changing for you, and I've again seen this happen, I've seen this happen in my coaching practice, a man or a woman will change for the other person. What happens when you're the reason I change? I now become resentful of you because maybe I could have been happy with somebody that didn't want me to change. You don't want to start your relationship with having to feel like you need to change someone. With us, we have equal drive. We push each other, but we're never giving each other feedback on character issues because the character was done. We came ready-made. we had done our work, and then we'd come together after we'd done our work, and we just help each other get better. But we're working from a baseline of this person is a solid person. This person has good character. I trust this person. This person has a good heart, good intentions. And then everything else, you can build that. And I say that even in business, hire character, train skills. I've seen that so many times when I was a hiring manager. It's like if the person comes in with a stank ass attitude, they might finish the top of their class. But if they're going to come in and be toxic in the office, like I can't change their attitude.
No. It's like skills can be taught, the attitude can't.
You can't. It's either you have that willingness or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, next one is, I love this one. Date younger women because they have less baggage.
Another loaded question. You might get me in trouble on this episode. No, like I think there's there's a lot of variables to this. I'll kick it off firstly. I think depending on the man, like for example, if you're the 45-year-old executive, divorced, you have all the money, you're probably wanting the younger woman for personal needs and to be a trophy wife. However, if you are the 40-year-old man who is single, who wants love, who wants to start a family, I think there's a biological attraction subconsciously, this is my belief, to younger women because they're in their prime for birthing children. I think that's something that's beyond the 3D and just the physical world. I generally think that there is an attraction for that. Like I think this woman could be the best, healthiest for birthing children for a healthy family. So, I think there's totally different ends that the spectrum on that.
Well,
and
that
there's
makes
so much to unpack. So it's not like the older man is always a creep just trying to have a younger woman. Sometimes it's more to that, and they generally feel this attraction because they're going to be the best pick for raising a family.
I'm glad you brought that up, but because I agree. And there's like it's the same reason that men love breasts and hips. Why? It signals fertility. It's like milk. It's like hips.
We wouldn't have been given testosterone if we weren't supposed to be attracted.
Exactly. So there's absolutely the example that you gave is more of like the exception versus the rule. So this is as dating advice. So it would be, listen, men, it's like us getting in front of an auditorium full of men and saying, date younger women. They have less baggage. What is your take on that as advice for men or a dating advice?
I don't think it's less baggage. That's definitely not the terminology I would use. And again, depending on the man, I think for some men who are insecure in themselves, they could perceive younger women as easier to emotionally manipulate or control. And yeah, it's coming from sort of a negative place, and it's not necessarily true either. But generally, older women have a bit more wisdom. They're a bit stronger in their personality, and they're not going to be, generally speaking, emotionally manipulated as easily. So that could be attractive to a toxic man who wants that younger woman to, hey, I've got the wealth, I've got the car, I've got the house, I can take her on my holidays and can keep her under control, and she will look good by my side at the executive meetings and parties. So yeah, I think it's loaded.
Well, as someone who dated older men too, like I don't think that you can exclusively say, oh, you're a mismatch because you're 26 and he's even 50. Like I've been compatible with much older men, and that's fine. I think the advice is, it's kind of like saying to women, date older men. They have way more money. It's rooted in something scarce, right? And it's like, date younger women. They're prettier? Like it just,
again, it's not necessarily
true. It's a
true.
generalization.
There's plenty of 25-year-olds that are making millions of dollars, especially these YouTubers and online business owners that have done it young, straight out of school.
Exactly. But again, exception to the rule. That is not the general. Generally speaking, if you're going to look at the average 25-year-old, they're not a billionaire tech guy. They're
not Elon Musk, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, but that's the exception to the rule. So I think the advice as a whole is garbage, and I'm going to pick it apart from the part of she has less baggage. As someone who has coached women from in their 20s, I have clients in their 20s, and then I have clients in their 50s. You don't get more baggage. It's that women in their 20s, we tend to not even know who we are yet. We don't even know what we want yet. I was fortunate enough at the time, I dated some older men who were actually really kind and were gracious. But if I reflect back, could have a not so kind man come in and manipulated me in that situation? For sure. For sure. And it wasn't that I didn't have trauma or baggage, because most of our trauma happens in our childhood. So that trauma, all people are carrying it. It's not that everyone all like suddenly at 30, women are just constantly traumatized every day. No, they were carrying that trauma, that wounding, that fear of abandonment, not being chosen, not being seen. She had that from when she was a child. However, when she was in her 20s, she hadn't dissected that yet, most likely. For the general public, they probably have not unpacked it. She hasn't found her voice yet. She doesn't know how to communicate her needs. All of that tends to happen when she is more secure in herself. The woman that you saw online when you decided to message me was a fundamentally different woman than who I was in my 20s. I had found what my boundaries were. I had found my voice. I had found a way to communicate it. So when men talk about, or this advice in general, when they talk about there's less baggage, no, same amount of baggage. But here's the other thing. What they are trying to point to, and they're not entirely wrong, is that women can get bitter. Post 30s and now, especially in the 40s, they can become bitter and they can become more cynical and critical of men. But here's the thing. Women are going to go that way whether they're in a relationship or not. So if you found a girl and she's 23 and if you didn't do the right thing, you manipulated her and you end up in a relationship with her and you're a much older man and you are not in the same life stage. And when she's still feeling so excited about life at 40 and you're 65 and not taking care of yourself, and now she's not seeing you in the light that she saw you, and now she gets to see the real you because her brain has fully developed, who do you think is going to be at the receiving end of that resentment? You. And in often cases, women perceive that these men as taking their youth. And so it's not that women who are single become bitter. It's no, some women, just like when we talk about men cheating, some men will cheat. Some women will become bitter, but they are not bitter because they're single. In fact, the research shows that women tend to be happier out of a relationship. So she's not bitter because she's single. She's bitter because she was always going to be bitter. So whether you got her at 23 or you're dating her now at 40, same woman, right? It's whether we choose to do the level of work. Based on my life experience, I could be bitter, angry person. I'm the opposite of that because I choose to grow. I choose to look at my stuff and to unpack it and to show up as the best version of myself. I would be the same whether I've been married for the last 10 years or whether I was single today, because that's a personal choice. So clumping all women to saying that we have less baggage in our 20s, no, we have the same amount of baggage, we just haven't unpacked it. And then men who are emotionally immature can't handle a woman with boundaries. And so they perceive that as bitter. That's not bitter. That's just you not getting your way. That's not bitter. That's a woman who knows what she's worth. Now, I'm putting to the side for a second women who obviously don't communicate gracefully and they can be very unkind to men. And I don't advocate for that either. There's a way to communicate your boundaries without being mean, without being emasculating, without degrading a man. I think that that's really gross and so unattractive, whether I'm looking at that woman as a man or whether I'm looking at that woman as a fellow female. Like, that's just really gross behavior. Putting that to the side is that women, when they're in their 30s, are actually just more sure of who they are.
And on the flip side, like, it doesn't matter how you deliver it to the immature man. Like at work, being a leader in my work environment and having to talk with adults, it doesn't matter how you deliver it. If the man has not done the work, they're always going to take it like a personal attack, and they're going to be emotionally volatile, and they're going to lash out, and they're going to abuse, they're going to accuse and put blame on everybody else. That's another big sign. Like, it doesn't matter how elegant you deliver it, and if the man hasn't done the work, he's going to be lashing out. He's a big baby. It's just like dealing with children. It literally, we joke about it at work. It's like they're big babies. They haven't dealt with their trauma. They have their issues, and everything's a personal attack on them. They're a victim.
I agree.
Yeah, and that's
And that's
scenario.
not just men, right?
run.
It's women as well. And so like men can be these like explosive babies, and women can be bitter. And none of those have to do with age. It's how much personal responsibility are you taking for your life?
Yeah,
How much are you willing to look at your stuff? Okay, next dating advice is you shouldn't date anyone until you're fully healed.
Although parts of me agree with that, I don't totally agree with it, because I think so many of our teachings and our learnings come from relationships, even when they're not the right relationships. I think they're great teachers. I think they show us a lot about who we are and who we aren't. I felt like all of my relationships through my 20s taught me something new that I could then bring into the next relationship. So I don't totally agree with that. However, I think it does come to a point, for example, before we met, where we both got to a place where we were on our own. If you can't be happy in your own skin, if you're always needing somebody there because for comfort, for support, for whatever it is, then you need to have that time alone. You need to heal and learn how to be happy on your own. Because we were both at that stage where, like I said earlier in the podcast, I said to Mum that, hey Mum, I'm so happy, I don't think I'm ever going to get married. That's when I've truly learned, after having several serious relationships and learning stuff from each one of them and bringing them into my life now, that it was at that point where I learned to be alone, and I did heal. I did set healthy boundaries for myself, that I was able to then, step into this relationship so confident in who I am and knowing that I'm not going to stand for someone who's not going to complement my life. And I think it was similar for yourself.
I agree with you. I think there's a baseline. You should have done some work, but the idea that you'll ever be fully healed, I don't believe that that's even possible. So if you were waiting until you're fully healed, you just be single forever.
You're waiting forever, yeah.
Yeah. So rather than saying wait until you're fully healed, I would say wait until you've forgiven, because everything that we do in relationship, whenever there's conflict in a relationship, we're basically bringing in our past traumas into the current one. And when I coach women, one of the most common things I see, especially from a woman who has experienced a lot of infidelity in the past, is that she's hypervigilant in this current relationship. So she's constantly thinking or looking at his phone or thinking, why is he hiding his phone? He might do the most normal thing, like take his phone with him into the bathroom, and it's immediately alarm bells going. Why? Because she's still holding on to that trauma from the past. She hasn't chosen to let go. And if you don't forgive the people that have hurt you, you'll bleed on the people who didn't cut you. It's the best analogy to understand how our past trauma is carried into our current day reality unless we choose to heal it. And so while you're never going to be fully clear, because how trauma presents in the body is it's this visceral, like you can feel it. It's your heart racing. You become sweaty. It's this feeling. It happens very viscerally, and it happens really quickly. That's going to happen regardless. To this day, I have a deep, deep, deep fear of being seen. So what happens when I get cameras on me and I get spotlight, or I'm speaking on stage I can feel myself clam up. I can feel the trauma raising in my body. So I need to just, because now I know I've trained my body that I'm safe to be seen. I am safe to have eyes on me. I am safe within myself. I can neutralize. I can regulate. I can calm my nervous system. And it doesn't mean the trauma disappears. It's just now I know how to integrate and how to move through the trauma. And it's the same thing in relationship. If I'm constantly afraid, and I shared this with you before, is when I was young and I started dating, anytime I felt unsafe in a relationship, I would break up with my boyfriend, and he would be like, every time I go to my cottage, you always break up with me. Poor thing. Like 12. It was because I was projecting my trauma of being abandoned. That was a core wound from when I'm like 5. I'm now projecting it on this poor innocent boy who's just going to his cottage, and I'm pushing him away.
And I'd like to add in there as well, because I did some serious healing when we got together. in some cases, dealing with trauma and when you're doing some deep healing work, it probably is easier to do it alone before you meet someone. However, if you are with the right person, they will support and hold you through that. And we did. I went through some pretty significant healing work, and a lot of emotions came up, and it was hard. But you were able to support me through that and guide me through that as well. And you never attacked me, you never shamed me, you never made me feel guilty for it. I couldn't understand the emotions that were happening to me. And as my coach said at the time, it's like, mate, you're dealing with things that you haven't felt in 20 years. It's normal, and it's wrong to do it with a person, but it does take a special relationship and a special partner to guide you through the healing as well. When you're doing the deeper stuff, obviously we're always going to be doing the work. I think you and I will be on the personal growth journey for the rest of our lives. But, you know, when you're doing trauma work and really healing those childhood traumas, it's pretty heavy. So, yeah, I just wanted to throw that in because that's something we went through.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think when you're in a relationship with someone, having that understanding of like, hey, we're doing some like healing work together, or the other person being aware and being able to support you through that. I have seen it go so far to one side, though. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but because I remember when you invested in your coach and you did some amazing work, and I saw. And the other thing is we got pregnant. So you went from being a bachelor, living your best life in Bali, to being in Perth, figuring out, well, what are we going to do with this little baby? What is our life going to look like now? So there's a lot of transitional things. And then that's when you started working with Steph and really like going through and moving through those big traumas. That was very much, we were in it together and like navigating together. And then there was also an end to that. And so there was like, okay, our work is done, like 6 months, 1 year, whatever, our work is done. And now it's those maintenance things that we were referring to. What I think people can get stuck in, and this is why I moved a little bit away from like trauma healing to now emotional intelligence regulation, is because you can get addicted to the healing. And if you constantly are in this healing phase and you're always healing trauma, what are you affirming subconsciously? Is I'm traumatized, I have trauma. There's a difference between having a knowing and saying like, yep, I've got some stuff I've got to deal with like everyone else, like every person on the planet. And it's a very different energy when you're constantly going back. And this is where I see people becoming addicted to these healing practices, which I actually think make you more vulnerable than allow you to step into your power.
I've actually got something to add to that because, you know, I feel like I really peeled back the layers with Steph on that one-on-one coaching, and probably over a year ago now, I did a men's retreat, and it was that deep emotional work, and I found myself feeling this isn't for me. Like I'm done. And it's not that I've finished working on myself or anything, but I just didn't feel like it was right for me to go back into that trauma. I felt like I'd already dealt with it and I've already done the work on it. And I came away a bit disappointed going, I was expecting more of like a military style camp where it was going to be a bit more mentally and physically challenging. And that's what I was sort of looking. So that's a perfect example. I'm not chasing that addiction to go and deal with that trauma again. I was like, no, I've been there, and I was looking for something different that was going to challenge me more on a physical and mental side. And so, yeah, it wasn't that it was a bad men's retreat. It was just that it wasn't the right thing for me at the time, and that's progression.
I love that. It's a progression and an up-leveling. So what I tell my clients is like, we'll do a baseline of what were those early childhood traumas, like who are you still trying to impress, who do you feel like didn't truly see you. We want to know what we're working with, and we want to go there, but we don't want to stay there. The reason we want to have an awareness of it is when an emotion happens in this present moment, I can be like, oh yeah, that's little Mars being afraid of XYZ. It's little Mars thinking like, why did my mom give me up? Okay, cool. Now I can be in my powerful present self and move through that. And that's why now when I work with women, it's more like, okay, we know what your trauma is. Now let's work on having mastery over your emotions, because that's how we're going to create the life that you truly want. We're not going to create the life that you truly want by constantly going over why your dad wasn't there, why your mom didn't truly see you, why you were bullied in school. That is not creating the reality that you want, because our brains, our bodies don't have any concept of time. So the moment we think about it, the moment we feel it, we are now living that trauma again. It's like that trauma happened right now. So I'm very conscious of doing work, and this is why I'm cautious with plant medicine and the type of journey that you have, because there is a time and place, and there's also integration is so important. Like, it's so important that you're integrating. You're not constantly going from one medicine to another. But then also deciding, it's actually a decision. Like, you decided that you didn't need to go back and heal that again. You're ready for that next level version of yourself. You're now ready to be the leader of our family. You're going to be the example to Luca. You want to be a shining light to other men. That man doesn't need to be spending all this time over here. You are ready for something new. And I think that that's a beautiful journey. And I don't want people to get stuck in just the trauma piece, just reliving that trauma, because you can 1,000% be addicted to your trauma. You can even get significance from your trauma, because if my trauma is so bad and every time I tell you, you're like, wow, oh my gosh, I'm getting significance from that. That feeds my ego. That actually feels good. Even though it feels bad, it feels good to the ego. What the ego doesn't like is like, well, but what happens next? What happens if I want to be a leader? What happens if I want to be a coach? What happens if I want to be a speaker? The ego's like, well, I don't know what that is over there. That's completely uncertain. Who are we past this trauma? We know this trauma. This trauma feels familiar. We get sympathy eyes. Let's talk more about that. And this is what can keep people stuck. So just tying it back to, do you need to fully heal? Absolutely not. I would probably choose a partner that understands a little bit of the journey and can walk with you, because I think there can be some tensions in relationships when one person is walking down that path and the other person wants nothing to do with it. I think that can definitely cause tensions. For us, we've been so fortunate that we're both so on the path, and we're always constantly sending each other either like healing related, mindset related, money related, entrepreneurship, travel, like parenting. It's always parenting. It's like always the next level for us.
Yeah. Well, it comes back to picking your right person.
Those are all the questions I had for you, babe. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.